Hello, my sleepy heads. It's good to have you back on History for Sleep. In the following minutes, you will experience a deep state of relaxation. This story helps you to easily sleep through the night, so you can get up energized in the morning. Not only will you fall asleep faster, you will also get rid of disturbing thoughts. Listen to these history stories for at least 10 days for the best results. The longer you listen to the video, the more likely you'll experience persistent and positive changes in the way you sleep. I wish you a great rest, and if you haven't already, we'd be very happy if you consider subscribing to the channel so you won't miss any new calming and relaxing history story. Tonight, we're going to drift back, far beyond kingdoms and empires, into a world millions of years ago. A world of endless forests, wild rivers, and open plains, where survival depended on sharp eyes, steady hands, and the rhythm of the earth itself. Life was raw, uncertain, and fragile, yet it carried the first sparks of what we would one day become. Over the next couple of hours, we'll imagine what a single day might have been like for our prehistoric ancestors. Their foraging, their struggles against nature, their quiet moments by the fire, and the unbroken cycle of survival that shaped humanity's earliest steps. Before you get comfortable and let your mind drift into this ancient world, I'd love it if you could take a gentle moment to like this video and subscribe. Only if these calm stories of the past bring you peace. Your support truly helps me grow and keep making these calm journey through time just for you. And in the comments, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always so wonderful to see our little community listening together from all corners of the world, quietly sharing these stories across space and time. So, settle in, take a slow breath, and let us step softly into the land of the Nile, where each sunrise and sunset tells a story of life, survival, and human resilience. Now let's begin. Close your eyes and imagine yourself slowly drifting backward through time. The present day begins to fade, the noise of cities, machines, and human voices all dissolving into silence. The further back you go, the more the earth transforms. Skyscrapers vanish into forests, villages turn to open plains, and rivers run free without dams or bridges. You keep gliding backward, thousands of years at a time, until history itself disappears. Great empires crumble into dust before they are even built. The pyramids, the Roman Colosseum, and medieval castles vanish from the horizon. Further back you go, until you reach a world before farming, before writing, before civilization. Millions of years ago, the earth looked both familiar and strange. Mountains and seas were already here, but the plants, the animals, and the way of life were completely different. This is the dawn of humanity, the time when our earliest ancestors began to walk the earth. It is here, in this quiet, ancient world, that our journey begins. A place where life was simple, but also filled with challenges. Let your mind settle as we slowly step into this prehistoric time, where humans were just another part of nature's great story. The earth millions of years ago was a place shaped by powerful natural forces. Volcanoes rose from the ground, spilling rivers of lava that created new lands. Earthquakes shook the soil, shifting mountains and carving valleys. Great sheets of ice advanced and retreated in different ages, covering entire regions with glaciers. Forests spread widely, filled with tall trees, ferns, and strange animals that no longer exist today. Herds of giant mammals wandered across grasslands, while predators followed close behind. Life was raw, unpredictable, and always changing. The climate swung between warmth and cold, forcing living creatures to adapt in order to survive. For early humans, this was the world they entered. They were not rulers of the land yet, just small groups of hunters and gatherers, learning to live among much larger and stronger creatures. At night, the only lights were the stars above and the flicker of fire they managed to keep alive. The air smelled of wood smoke, wet soil, and fresh rain. The sounds were those of the natural world: wolves howling, birds calling, and the rustle of animals in the grass. This world was their home, wild and untamed, but full of beauty and mystery. When we think about life today, it is filled with technology, comfort, and routine. But in the world of prehistoric humans, life followed the rhythm of nature. The rising sun meant the start of the day, and the setting sun brought nightfall. There were no clocks, no calendars, no digital screens. Time was measured by the warmth of the sun, the passing of seasons, and the changes in the sky. For our early ancestors, survival depended on listening closely to the land around them. The crack of branches might signal danger, while the pattern of bird calls could reveal where water or food was near. Every sound and sight carried meaning. Early humans lived with a deep awareness of their environment, because their lives depended on it. Yet, there was also a sense of wonder. The endless sky above, the mysterious stars, and the changing moon filled them with curiosity. They may not have had words for everything they saw, but they carried these experiences deep within their minds. In this way, their lives were not only about survival, but also about connection with the earth, with animals, and with each other, in ways we can still feel echoes of today. The first humans to appear on Earth were not quite like us, but they carried the spark of what would become humanity. Scientists call them Homo habilis, meaning handyman, because they were among the first to make simple stone tools. They lived more than 2 million years ago, walking upright, but still small and fragile compared to the animals around them. Their world was full of giant predators, saber-toothed cats, hyenas, and crocodiles far larger than the ones we know today. To survive, they had to be clever, cautious, and quick. They chipped stones into sharp edges to cut meat, break bones, or slice plants. These early tools marked the beginning of something extraordinary: the ability of humans to shape the world around them. Even though life was hard and dangers were many, every small discovery became a step toward the future. Fire, shelter, and tools were not just objects. They were signs of intelligence, cooperation, and imagination. When we look back at this time, we see not just struggle, but also the very first sparks of creativity. This was the start of a journey that would eventually lead to art, language, and civilization. But for now, life remains simple, raw, and close to nature. Imagine standing on a plain during this distant time. The air is cooler, fresher, untouched by smoke or pollution. All around you are open grasslands, stretching as far as the eye can see. Herds of animals move slowly across the horizon. Antelope, mammoths, or perhaps woolly rhinos, depending on the age. Their footsteps rumble softly through the earth. In the distance, a river winds its way through the land, glistening in the sunlight. The trees nearby are filled with the sounds of birds calling, while insects hum gently in the air. For early humans, this landscape was both a source of danger and a gift of life. Water to drink, animals to hunt, plants to gather, all were here if they knew how to find them. But at the same time, predators hid in the shadows. Lions, leopards, and great cats roamed nearby, always watching. This was not a world where humans controlled nature. Instead, it was a world where humans had to learn their place within it. To survive, they had to walk quietly, move carefully, and live with constant awareness. Yet even with danger close at hand, there was beauty in the wide, open sky and the endless rhythm of the land. At night, the prehistoric world took on another face. Without the glow of modern lights, the darkness was deep and almost complete. Only the moon, the stars, and the crackle of fire broke the shadows. Around the fire, small groups of humans huddled together. The flames brought warmth, safety, and comfort. Fire was a gift unlike any other, keeping wild animals at bay and giving light for tools, food, and companionship. In the silence of night, humans may have looked up at the sky in awe. The stars shone brighter than anything we see today, filling the heavens with patterns and mystery. The shifting constellations, the slow passing of the moon, and the glow of distant planets must have filled their thoughts with wonder. Around the fire, voices may have risen, simple words, soft songs, or shared stories. These moments of closeness shaped bonds between them. Fear of the dark mixed with peace as flames flickered against the walls of caves or the trunks of trees. For our ancestors, night was a time of both caution and imagination, when the world felt large, endless, and filled with secrets waiting to be discovered. The landscapes where humans lived millions of years ago were incredibly varied. Some lived on open savannas, where tall grasses swayed in the wind and large animals grazed. Others found shelter in forests, where dense trees provided cover but also hid dangers. Rivers and lakes were lifelines, offering fish, fresh water, and fertile ground for plants. These environments were always shifting. Ice ages came and went, forcing humans to move to warmer lands. Droughts dried rivers, while rains turned plains into wetlands. Unlike us today, they could not rely on permanent homes or farms. Instead, they followed the land, moving with the animals and the seasons. This way of life kept them deeply connected to nature. They learned where certain plants grew, when animals migrated, and how to track the signs of weather. This deep knowledge, passed from one generation to the next, allowed small groups to survive in places that might seem impossible to us. Though they lived without maps or science, their understanding of the earth was sharp, practical, and full of wisdom. Each new day brought fresh challenges, but also fresh opportunities, and in this balance, life continued for thousands upon thousands of years. When we picture these early humans, it is important to remember they were not alone. The Earth was home to many different human-like species, each adapting in their own way. Neanderthals, for example, lived in colder regions of Europe and Asia, building shelters, hunting large animals, and surviving in harsh climates. Homo erectus spread across vast lands, from Africa to Asia, mastering the use of fire and tools. Our own species, Homo sapiens, appeared later, carrying with them a spark of creativity that led to art, language, and culture. But in the beginning, none of this was clear. To live in this ancient time was to be one of many, a single thread in the larger web of life. Groups of humans shared the land with great beasts, with rival tribes, and with the constant challenges of the environment. It was a world where survival depended not on strength alone, but on cooperation, learning, and the ability to adapt. Slowly, over countless generations, the knowledge grew, and with it, the ability to not only endure, but to dream of something greater. This journey of humanity, starting so simply, was the seed of everything we know today. The air in prehistoric times carried a different stillness than what we know today. Without the constant hum of machines, life moved at the pace of footsteps, the flow of rivers, and the whisper of the wind. Early mornings were filled with birdsong, while evenings were marked by the slow dimming of light. Humans woke with the sunrise and rested soon after sunset, their bodies moving in rhythm with the natural world. There were no alarms, no schedules, only the steady guidance of the earth itself. Days were filled with simple but important tasks: finding food, protecting the young, building fires, and searching for safe places to rest. These tasks may sound ordinary, but they carried meaning and urgency, for survival depended on them. Yet within this simplicity, there was peace. Without distractions, the human mind wandered toward observation, toward noticing details that many of us overlook today. The shape of leaves, the path of clouds, the movements of animals. In many ways, their world was harder, but also more connected, a world where every moment mattered and every action tied them more deeply to the land they walked upon. To step back into this time is to step into a world before history, before words were written or memories recorded. What we know comes from the earth itself, stones shaped by human hands, bones buried in caves, and faint markings left on walls. These small traces tell us stories of a life that was both fragile and enduring. They show us that even in the hardest times, humans found ways to adapt, to create, and to carry knowledge forward. The earth remembers what humans themselves could not record. Fossils, tools, and artifacts are whispers from that deep past, helping us imagine what it was like. Yet, even beyond evidence, there is a feeling we can sense when we think of this time, a mixture of struggle and beauty, danger and discovery. It was a time when the world was wide, mysterious, and open. Every day was a challenge, but also a chance to grow. As we drift deeper into this story, imagine yourself walking alongside these early humans, hearing their footsteps, watching their fires, and seeing their world with fresh eyes. In this way, the distant past becomes not just history, but a part of us still alive today. Prehistoric life also reminds us of our connection to nature. In today's world, it is easy to feel separate from the land, surrounded by concrete and technology. But long ago, humans were never apart from it. They depended on rivers for water, forests for shelter, and animals for food and clothing. Every plant, every stone, every shift in the weather mattered deeply. This closeness shaped how they saw the world. They may not have spoken of science or religion as we do, but they carried a quiet respect, born from daily survival, for the forces greater than themselves. When lightning flashed, when storms roared, or when stars moved across the sky, it must have filled them with awe. These natural wonders were their teachers, guiding them in ways we are only beginning to understand. To rest your mind in this prehistoric world is to feel that connection again. The soft rhythm of nature, the endless skies, and the steady cycles of seasons. These were the companions of our earliest ancestors, wrapping them in both challenge and comfort, just as they can wrap us now in calm reflection and restful thought. And so, as we begin this journey into the distant past, let us pause for a moment of stillness. Imagine yourself seated near a glowing fire in the heart of an ancient plain. Around you, shadows stretch long under the stars, and a cool breeze stirs the grass. In the distance, the quiet calls of night animals echo, while the flames crackle softly, giving warmth to your skin. You are safe, surrounded by others, part of a small group that depends on each other for survival. Above, the Milky Way stretches across the sky, brighter and clearer than you have ever seen it. This is the same sky that our earliest ancestors gazed upon, wondering what lay beyond. As the fire glows and the night deepens, your thoughts grow slower, calmer, more peaceful. The world of millions of years ago was a place of struggle, yes, but also of wonder and quiet beauty. In this gentle stillness, you can drift deeper into their story, carried by the echoes of the past. As we move forward into their daily lives, their shelters, their food, and their families, let the rhythm of this ancient world guide you into calm reflection and, if you wish, into restful sleep. When we think about the earliest humans, it helps to imagine a world very different from today. The Earth millions of years ago was not filled with tall cities or crowded highways, but with open grasslands, thick forests, and wild rivers. Life moved slowly, shaped by the rhythm of nature. Early humans, our distant ancestors, were small groups of people who learned to survive in this challenging world. They were not yet fully like us, but they were clever, curious, and able to adapt. Different species of early humans appeared over time, such as Homo habilis, who were among the first toolmakers, and Homo erectus, who began to walk long distances across continents. Later came the Neanderthals, strong and resourceful, who lived in Europe and Asia. Each group faced unique struggles, but all shared the same need for food, safety, warmth, and companionship. Instead of modern comforts, they relied on sharp eyes, teamwork, and their growing ability to shape tools from stone and wood. As we explore their world, we begin to see how humanity slowly developed from simple beginnings into the remarkable journey that eventually led to us. One of the most striking features of early human life was their close connection to nature. Unlike us, who often lived behind walls and screens, early humans lived under the open sky. They woke with the sunrise, felt the warmth of daylight, and feared the deep darkness of night. They had to watch the movement of animals, notice the change of seasons, and follow the paths of rivers. For Homo habilis, life was mostly about survival. They were smaller in size compared to us and lived about 2 million years ago in Africa. Their name means handyman because they shaped the first simple tools from stone. These tools helped them cut meat, crack open nuts, and scrape hides from animals. While these tools were basic, they marked the first step toward human creativity. Imagine a small group gathered under trees, chipping stones to make sharp edges, while children watched and learned. It was in such quiet, patient ways that skills were passed down. Though life was difficult, these early humans set the foundation for everything that came after. Their world was harsh, but it was also a place of discovery, where each new tool and idea carried the spark of human progress. As time moved forward, another group of humans began to appear, Homo erectus. They lived nearly 2 million years ago and were very different from Homo habilis. Taller and stronger, they were skilled walkers who could travel far across Africa, Asia, and eventually Europe. Their bodies were built for endurance, which allowed them to follow herds of animals and explore new lands. One of their greatest achievements was learning to use fire. Fire changed everything. It provided warmth on cold nights, protection from dangerous animals, and a place to cook food. Imagine a small band of Homo erectus sitting around a flickering fire, listening to the crackle of burning wood while sharing roasted meat. The flames gave them safety and comfort in a world full of uncertainty. Fire also allowed them to stay awake longer, creating more time for social bonds to grow. In many ways, fire was more than just a tool. It was a gathering place, a symbol of survival, and perhaps even the beginning of storytelling. With firelight dancing on the walls of caves or on the surface of stone shelters, early humans began to live not only for survival, but also for connection and meaning. Among the most fascinating early humans were the Neanderthals, who lived in Europe and Western Asia around 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. They were not our direct ancestors, but rather a close relative, sharing much of our genetic history. Neanderthals were shorter but very strong, with powerful bodies suited for cold climates. They hunted large animals like mammoths and bison, often working together in well-organized groups. What makes them especially remarkable is their ability to think beyond survival. Evidence shows that they buried their dead with care, sometimes with flowers or tools, suggesting they had a sense of respect and perhaps even spiritual belief. They also created tools with great skill and may have decorated themselves with shells or pigments. Imagine walking into a rocky cave and seeing handprints on the walls, left behind tens of thousands of years ago by Neanderthal families. Their lives remind us that humanity is not only about survival, but also about expression, memory, and emotion. Though they eventually disappeared, their presence shaped our own story, and traces of their DNA still live within many people today. In the quiet world of early humans, the Neanderthals stand out as a reminder that our journey was never taken alone. What tied all early humans together across different species was the need for community. A single human alone in the prehistoric world would not have lasted long, but together, small groups could thrive. Families and tribes hunted, gathered, and shared food. They cared for the young and protected the weak. Elders passed down knowledge, teaching younger generations where to find food, how to shape tools, and which plants were safe to eat. Imagine a group sitting under a star-filled sky, with children listening quietly as an elder shared stories of past hunts or warnings about dangers. This oral tradition, spoken wisdom, was one of the earliest forms of education. Even without written words, humans found ways to teach and remember. Life was hard, but it was also filled with moments of togetherness, laughter, and learning. The bond of the tribe gave each person strength, and within those circles of firelight and shelter, the roots of our modern societies began to grow. These bonds were the glue that held early humans together, allowing them to survive challenges that no individual could have faced alone. The world of early humans may seem distant, but it is the foundation of who we are today. Their discoveries, from shaping the first stone tools to controlling fire, were small steps that led to enormous changes. Each new skill pushed humanity forward, making survival a little easier and opening doors to creativity, cooperation, and culture. When we picture Homo habilis striking stones, Homo erectus carrying torches, or Neanderthals gathering in caves, we are really looking into the mirror of our own beginnings. Their lives were full of danger and uncertainty, yet they also carried the same hopes and needs we still hold today: food, safety, family, and meaning. To imagine their world is to imagine the first heartbeat of human history, a time when every step was an experiment and every discovery was a treasure. As we drift deeper into this story, it becomes clear that early humans were not just survivors of the past, but the first dreamers, innovators, and caretakers of our shared journey. Their world, though ancient, whispers softly into ours, reminding us of how far we have come and how much we still carry from those who walked before us. When we think about the earliest shelters of humans, We often picture caves hidden in rocky hillsides. These natural spaces were among the first safe havens for early people, offering protection from storms, wild animals, and the cold. A cave was more than just a place to rest. It was a shield against the unpredictable forces of nature. Inside, the air was cool and quiet, with the scent of damp earth and the faint echoes of dripping water. Families would gather in the dim light, often near a fire that flickered against the stone walls, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with life. In this simple way, a cave became not just a shelter, but also a place of community, where warmth and comfort replaced fear. The strong stone walls kept the wind away, and the narrow entrances made it easier to guard against predators. To imagine life in these caves is to imagine an early form of home, one that gave humans a sense of belonging. While many lived in the open plains or forests, caves provided rare and precious security, anchoring tribes to specific places in a vast and uncertain world. But caves were not always available, and humans learned to build shelters using the resources around them. Wood, branches, leaves, and animal hides became the building blocks of some of the first human-made homes. Imagine a group of early people collecting long branches, leaning them together to form a cone-shaped structure, and covering it with grass, reeds, or skins to keep out the rain. These huts were simple, yet they carried an important idea: that humans could shape their environment rather than just accept it. Even small improvements, like placing stones around the base to stop the wind or laying dry leaves on the ground for comfort, made a huge difference. Such shelters were temporary, often built while following migrating animals, but they reveal the creativity of early humans. These wooden homes connected people more deeply with the forests and plains, where every branch or reed could become part of their survival. Unlike caves, which were gifts of nature, these shelters showed the human ability to invent, adapt, and construct. Each one was a step toward the houses and villages that would appear thousands of years later when people began to settle more permanently on the land. Shelters also varied depending on the environment. In colder regions, humans needed warmth above all. Here, animal skins were stretched tightly over wooden frames to trap heat, turning a fragile hut into a snug refuge against icy winds. In warmer climates, shelters were lighter and open, allowing breezes to pass through. Imagine the contrast: a snow-covered plain with glowing firelight inside a hide-covered tent, and far away, a tropical clearing where a canopy of palm leaves shielded families from heavy rains. Humans were not fixed to one type of home, but always adjusted to their surroundings. This adaptability was key to survival, allowing people to spread across diverse lands. They could endure snowy winters, damp forests, and dry grasslands, simply by shaping shelter to fit each need. Some groups even used mammoth bones and tusks to form the frames of their huts, a striking image of creativity in harsh Ice Age landscapes. These homes, however fragile, carried a sense of resilience. With every new design, Humans grew more confident in their ability to control their world, turning raw elements of nature into protection, warmth, and comfort. Shelters were more than just physical safety. They were emotional spaces as well. Inside a hut or cave, people could relax, share food, and nurture their children without the constant tension of danger. A shelter created a boundary between the wild outside and the calm inside. Imagine children drifting to sleep near the glow of a fire, while elders spoke softly about hunts or spirits, their voices blending with the crackle of wood. These moments gave humans a sense of security and belonging that reached beyond survival. Archaeologists have found traces of hearths, fire circles inside shelters, that suggest people returned to the same spots again and again, turning temporary shelters into familiar homes. Over time, these places became tied to memory and meaning. Just as we think of home today as a place of warmth and connection, so too did early humans find comfort in the simple spaces they built. A pile of stones, a wooden frame, or a circle of animal hides became more than construction. It became a symbol of safety, family, and community. In this way, the earliest shelters carried not just bodies, but also the beginnings of human spirit and identity. The role of fire inside these shelters cannot be overstated. Fire transformed cold caves and wooden huts into true homes. Its light pushed back the darkness, its heat kept bodies alive, and its smoke kept insects and animals away. Around the fire, people gathered at the heart of their shelters, creating the first living rooms. Imagine flames flickering against the stone walls of a cave, painting them with golden light, or glowing softly through the cracks of a hide-covered tent. Fire turned every shelter into a place of gathering, where stories could be told, songs could be sung, and knowledge could be passed from one generation to the next. Some researchers believe that the safety fire provided allowed humans to sleep more deeply, giving their minds rest and allowing dreams to form. In this sense, the shelter and the fire together not only protected humans physically, but also nurtured their inner lives. They created time for reflection, creativity, and bonding. From these quiet circles of light, the roots of culture grew, carried forward by people who no longer felt completely at the mercy of the night. Fire made shelters alive, warm, and deeply human. Looking back at the shelters of stone and wood, we can see them as the very first steps toward human civilization. Though simple, they reveal how people learned to shape their surroundings, creating safe spaces that gave life stability and meaning. These shelters connected humans with the land, the forests, and the animals whose hides and bones were used for building. They were the earliest homes, fragile, temporary, yet filled with warmth, family, and memory. Today, when we rest in our own homes, with walls that protect us and roofs that keep out the rain, we are continuing the same ancient tradition that began in caves and huts thousands of years ago. The feeling of safety when we close a door, the comfort of gathering with loved ones under one roof. All of it has deep roots in the shelters of early humans. They remind us that at the heart of human progress is a simple need, a place to rest, to feel safe, and to dream. In their humble shelters of stone and wood, prehistoric humans began to shape not only the world around them, but also the idea of home, a legacy that still surrounds us every night as we drift into sleep. The story of the first tools is the story of human imagination. Millions of years ago, early humans looked at the world around them and saw not just trees, stones, or bones, but possibilities. A sharp piece of flint could cut meat more easily than teeth. A heavy rock could crush nuts or bones. A sturdy stick could dig into the ground to find roots or tubers. These small discoveries marked the beginning of human invention. The earliest known tools, made by Homo habilis around 2.5 million years ago, were little more than sharp flakes chipped from larger stones. Yet, they changed everything. With a stone flake, humans could scrape animal hides for clothing, cut plants for food, and prepare meat in ways that gave them more strength and energy. It was a small step, but a powerful one. In those first sparks of creativity, humanity began to separate itself from other creatures, not by strength or speed, but by thought and invention. Each tool was not just an object, but a new way of interacting with the world, opening doors to survival, adaptation, and growth. Over time, tools grew more sophisticated. Homo erectus, appearing nearly 2 million years ago, learned to shape stones into hand axes, teardrop-shaped tools with sharp edges on both sides. These axes were more versatile, able to cut wood, butcher animals, and dig into soil. Imagine a group of humans sitting in a circle, carefully striking stones together, shaping one into a smooth and balanced tool. The sound of stone against stone echoed across the plains, each strike carrying patience and skill. These tools required planning. One had to imagine the shape before it was finished, a sign of developing intelligence. The hand axe was so effective that it was used for over 1 million years, spread across continents as humans migrated. Alongside stone, other materials came into play. Bones were sharpened into points, and wood was carved into spears. These inventions expanded what humans could do, turning them into hunters as well as gatherers. The creation of tools showed that early humans were not only reacting to nature, but shaping it to their will. Each new invention deepened their connection to the land and to one another, laying the foundation for future leaps in culture and technology. One of the most life-changing inventions was the control of fire, often considered humanity's greatest tool. Fire provided warmth, light, and protection, but it also unlocked new ways of living. Cooking food over flames made it easier to chew and digest, which some scientists believe gave humans more energy for brain growth. Imagine the scene: flames flickering in the darkness, the smell of roasted meat rising into the night air, while families huddled close to the warmth. Fire also allowed people to harden wooden spear tips, making them stronger and more durable. With this, hunting became more efficient and survival more secure. Beyond its practical uses, fire gave humans a new sense of power. They could now push back the shadows of night, extend their waking hours, and share stories around glowing embers. Fire was not invented in the same way as stone tools, but learning to capture and control it was itself an innovation, born of observation and persistence. The mastery of fire transformed simple shelters into true homes, and simple groups into tighter communities. It was not only a tool of survival, but also a tool of connection, shaping the human spirit as much as the human body. The journey of invention did not stop with fire or stone axes. Early humans found new ways to use the materials around them, turning ordinary objects into extraordinary aids. Bones were carved into needles, allowing people to sew hides into clothing that kept them warm during Ice Age winters. Shells and stones were drilled into beads, perhaps the first attempts at decoration or symbols of identity. Spears with sharpened tips became more advanced when early humans began attaching stone blades to them, creating the first composite tools. These spearheads allowed hunters to target larger animals with greater safety and success. Each improvement was not only practical but also imaginative, showing the growing creativity of the human mind. Even the act of planning a hunt, preparing tools in advance, and working together required a level of foresight that set humans apart. These inventions reveal more than survival. They show a desire to shape life with intention. What had once been a struggle against nature became a dance with it, as humans learned to use its resources in new and inventive ways. From stone flakes to decorated beads, the first tools carried the seeds of both necessity and expression, weaving survival with the beginnings of culture. Perhaps one of the most profound aspects of these inventions was their ability to bring humans closer together. Toolmaking was not just a personal skill, but a shared activity. Knowledge had to be passed on, with elders teaching younger generations how to strike stones correctly or carve bones with precision. Imagine the quiet patience of a teacher guiding a child's hands, showing them how to chip a stone without breaking it. These moments were more than lessons in craft. They were lessons in communication, patience, and cooperation. Tools also encouraged collaboration during hunts, where each member of the group had a role to play. Some drove animals toward traps, while others waited with spears. Success depended on teamwork, and the tools themselves were at the heart of these strategies. In this way, inventions were not only physical objects, but also social bridges. They shaped the rhythm of daily life and gave people reasons to gather, learn, and work as one. Each new tool reinforced the bonds of the tribe, strengthening both survival and the shared sense of being human. We can feel their determination and hope. Their tools were small, but their impact was vast, shaping not only the course of survival, but also the destiny of humankind. In their hands, invention was born, and with it, the story of humanity truly began. For early humans, food was at the very center of daily life. Unlike today, where meals are planned and prepared with ease, every day in prehistoric times was a test of resourcefulness and survival. People had no markets or farms. They lived by what nature provided. This meant searching, gathering, and hunting, often moving from place to find what they needed. In warm seasons, groups collected berries, nuts, seeds, and edible roots, carrying them in woven baskets or animal skins. Streams offered fish and fresh water, while meadows yielded wild grains that could be crushed into coarse meals. Yet, finding food was never simple. A patch of berries could vanish in a day, and hunting was risky, requiring skill and teamwork. Imagine a small group walking through a forest, scanning the trees for fruit, listening to the rustle of animals nearby, and carefully tasting plants to see if they were safe. Every bite mattered. Every discovery meant another day of life. Food gathering was not only survival, it was also a way to connect with the land, to understand its cycles, and to live in harmony with its gifts. Hunting was one of the most demanding parts of prehistoric life, and it revealed both the courage and cooperation of early humans. Without modern weapons, hunting required strategy and unity. Wooden spears, tipped with sharpened stone or hardened in fire, became essential tools. Hunters worked together, some driving animals toward waiting spears, others hiding in ambush. Large animals like bison, mammoths, and deer provided meat, bones, hides, and sinew that could be used for tools or shelter. Yet such hunts were dangerous. One wrong move could lead to injury or death. More often, people hunted smaller animals, hares, birds, or fish that were easier to catch. Imagine the thrill of success when a spear struck true, or the quiet disappointment of returning empty-handed. Hunting was uncertain, but it bound people together, teaching trust and patience. The meat from a single large kill could feed a group for days, while smaller catches supplemented diets of plants and roots. Food was shared, not hoarded, because survival depended on the well-being of the group. Through hunting, humans not only gained nourishment, but also strengthened bonds, creating a sense of unity that echoed far beyond the meal itself. Gathering was equally important, especially for women and children, who often focused on collecting plants, fruits, and nuts. This role was vital, as plant foods provided steady nourishment when hunting was uncertain. Roots and tubers were dug up with sticks, while honey was carefully collected from hives, and mushrooms, herbs, and seeds added variety to meals. Early humans learned which plants were edible, which were poisonous, and which could be used for medicine. This knowledge, passed down through generations, was a priceless form of survival wisdom. Imagine a group moving slowly through a meadow, carefully plucking edible leaves, cracking nuts with stones, and storing food in simple containers made of bark or woven fibers. These moments of gathering were not as dramatic as hunting, but they were steady and dependable. Often, they provided the majority of daily calories, making them just as important as meat. The act of searching for food also connected people to the rhythms of nature, the flowering of plants, the ripening of fruit, and the migrations of animals that followed the seasons. Gathering was a quiet, constant effort, but one that wove humans deeply into the natural world around them. Food was not only about survival, it was also about sharing. Once gathered or hunted, meals became moments of community. Imagine a circle around a fire, where roasted meat sizzled on wooden sticks and children nibbled on berries gathered earlier in the day. Eating together reinforced bonds of trust and belonging. No one ate alone if food was available, because the strength of the tribe depended on everyone being nourished. These meals were also moments of teaching. Elders could explain how a plant was found, or hunters could describe the dangers of a recent chase. Through food, knowledge passed easily from one generation to the next. Early humans likely developed rituals and small customs around meals, perhaps giving thanks to nature or telling stories to mark the moment. Food thus became more than nourishment. It became culture. Even in these early days, the simple act of breaking open nuts or roasting meat was tied to memory and meaning. In the warmth of firelight and the closeness of family, meals created a sense of belonging that echoed into the foundations of human society. Eating was not just about living. It was about living together. Seasonal changes shaped every aspect of prehistoric diets. In the summer, fruits and berries were plentiful, while winter demanded reliance on stored foods, dried meat, or fat reserves from successful hunts. Some groups learned to smoke or dry meat, keeping it edible for longer periods. Others used natural shelters like caves or pits to store food away from animals. During harsh winters, when resources were scarce, humans showed remarkable resilience, adapting their diets to whatever was available. They might eat more roots, chew tough dried hides, or gather the last remaining nuts. Imagine the relief when spring finally arrived, bringing fresh greens and the return of migrating animals. These cycles of scarcity and abundance tied humans to the land in deep and enduring ways. Unlike today's steady food supply, prehistoric people lived with uncertainty, never knowing what the next season would bring. This closeness to the natural rhythm of growth and decay shaped their resilience and their respect for the land. It also meant that every meal, no matter how simple, was precious, a gift that carried both gratitude and relief. Looking back, the way prehistoric humans found and shared food reveals not only their struggle, but also their ingenuity. They were not helpless wanderers, but skilled foragers, hunters, and gatherers who understood their environment with remarkable depth. Each berry picked, each animal tracked, each root dug was a step in the long journey of human survival. Food connected them to the land, to one another, and to the future, for through these practices, knowledge was passed forward, shaping generations to come. Today, when we sit at our tables surrounded by abundance, it is easy to forget that every meal rests on the legacy of those first humans who learned to find nourishment in wild places. Their patience, cooperation, and respect for nature allowed them to endure hardships we can only imagine. More than survival, food was the thread that wove together family, memory, and meaning. As we picture those early humans gathered around a fire, sharing roasted meat and wild fruit, we can feel the timeless rhythm of humanity, sustained not only by what we eat, but by the bonds we form in sharing it. In food, the story of humanity has always been told. When we think of life millions of years ago, it is easy to imagine chaos and constant struggle. Yet for early humans, daily life followed a steady rhythm shaped by the natural world. Each day began with the rising sun, its warm light spilling over grasslands, forests, or rocky hillsides where small bands of people made their homes. The sun acted like a universal clock, telling humans when to wake, when to move, and when to rest. There were no mechanical alarms, no busy city streets, only the gradual call of birds, the distant sound of animals stirring, and the soft glow of morning. This gentle awakening set the tone for a day built on patterns, routines, and traditions passed down from one generation to the next. Tasks were not rushed, yet they were vital. Each moment of the day was connected to survival, finding food, caring for children, making tools, and keeping fires alive. And while the challenges were many, this rhythm also brought comfort. Everyone in the group knew their part, and this shared way of living gave early humans a deep sense of belonging and purpose. After waking, the tribe often gathered around the remains of the fire that had burned through the night. Fire was more than warmth. It was protection, a place for cooking, and even a kind of anchor that made people feel safe. Morning fires might be coaxed back to life with dry twigs and careful breath, glowing embers turning into crackling flames once more. With the fire alive, early humans prepared to face the day. Adults divided tasks based on skill and strength. Some would go out in search of berries, nuts, or roots, walking carefully along paths they had followed many times before. Others, especially skilled hunters, prepared their weapons, scanning the ground for animal tracks or listening for calls that gave away the presence of prey. Meanwhile, those staying behind cared for children, mended tools, or simply watched over the fire. There was no sharp divide between work and home, for both blended together in a seamless way of living. Life revolved around shared effort, and even the smallest actions, such as gathering sticks for kindling, were seen as important contributions to the survival of the group. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the daily tasks continued with patient focus. Foragers combed through bushes and trees, guided by knowledge passed down from elders who knew which plants were safe to eat and which to avoid. Hunters moved with quiet skill, sometimes walking for hours before spotting an animal worth pursuing. Every action carried weight, for food was never guaranteed. A successful day meant full bellies and security, but an unsuccessful one could mean hunger. Yet, despite these challenges, early humans worked together in ways that strengthened their bonds. Sharing food was a core part of daily rhythm. Meals were rarely eaten alone. Instead, whatever was found was brought back to the fire, where it was divided among everyone. This act of sharing created trust, ensuring that no one was left behind. Around the fire, people ate slowly, speaking in gestures, early words, or quiet sounds. These simple meals were more than nourishment. They were moments of connection, where the day's work transformed into shared stories, laughter, or thoughtful silence under the open sky. Afternoons often carried a slower pace. After the energy of hunting and gathering, people returned to camp, sometimes tired, but also grateful for what they had managed to find. The middle of the day could be hot, and shade under trees or the coolness of caves offered a place to rest. It was during these quieter hours that other important tasks unfolded. Tools needed sharpening, clothing from animal skins required stitching, and shelters sometimes needed repair after wind or rain. Children played nearby, learning through imitation as they watched their elders shape tools or prepare food. This was education in its earliest form, not with classrooms or books, but with careful observation and practice. The rhythm of daily life was not only about survival, but also about passing down knowledge so the next generation could continue the cycle. In these calm hours, creativity sometimes appeared too. Humans carved patterns into bones or shaped beads from stones, small acts of beauty woven into the fabric of ordinary life. As the sun began to set, activity shifted once more. Hunters and foragers returned if they had traveled far, carrying their finds back to the group. The fire was stoked higher as evening approached, and meals were prepared with care. Smoke curled into the sky, carrying the comforting scent of cooked meat or roasted plants. Around the fire, everyone gathered again, children nestling close to parents, elders sharing quiet wisdom, and others simply enjoying the warmth. This time of day often became the heart of social life. It was here, under the deepening colors of the sky, that people told stories, sometimes about hunts, sometimes about spirits, sometimes about the stars that began to appear above. These stories were not only entertainment, but also lessons, helping to guide behavior, strengthen traditions, and create a sense of meaning. The rhythm of daily life was grounded in this balance between work and rest, survival and storytelling. The day always ended as it began, with fire at its center, bringing comfort against the vast wilderness beyond the circle of light. When night fully arrived, the rhythm shifted into stillness. People huddled close in their shelters or gathered near the fire, the dark pressing in around them. Unlike our modern world, there were no artificial lights to keep the night away. The sky stretched endlessly above, filled with countless stars, the moon casting silver light over the land. This night sky became part of the rhythm, too. Humans gazed upward, wondering about patterns and movements, perhaps even feeling a connection to something greater. Sleep came naturally, guided by the cool air and the lull of nighttime sounds. Distant animal calls, rustling leaves, the gentle crackle of firewood. In this darkness, trust in one another grew stronger. People relied on the group to keep watch, to tend the fire, to be there if danger approached. The cycle would begin again with the first light of dawn, repeating in steady, timeless fashion. The rhythm of daily life may have been simple, but it carried a deep harmony, connecting humans to the earth, to each other, and to the quiet heartbeat of survival. This rhythm shaped not only their lives, but also the path of human history itself. Life for prehistoric humans was never a solitary journey. From the very beginning, survival depended on community, on the deep and unshakable bonds formed between families and small groups. These bonds created trust, stability, and comfort in a world filled with uncertainty. Families were the building blocks of early human life, yet they were not defined in the narrow way we often think of families today. Instead, the group was extended. Parents, children, grandparents, cousins, and close companions all lived together, sharing responsibilities and care. Every member mattered, from the youngest child learning how to walk to the eldest elder who carried within them the wisdom of many years. Elders remembered which plants healed, where animals gathered in certain seasons, and how to prepare for storms. Children, though small, brought joy, energy, and promise for the future. Parents guided them with patience, teaching survival skills through daily example rather than formal instruction. These bonds gave prehistoric people more than food and safety. They offered belonging. In the wide, sometimes frightening world, family and community were a constant shelter, like a fire that never went out. One of the strongest ways these communities thrived was through cooperation. Daily survival demanded teamwork, and every task was shared. While some hunted, others gathered. While some cared for children, others repaired tools or watched for signs of danger. It was understood that one person alone could not succeed for long. Cooperation was not just practical, it was emotional, too. In moments of hardship, such as harsh winters, illness, or hunger, the tribe became a net of support. Food was distributed across the group, not hoarded by one or two. This sense of fairness built trust, and trust built unity. Bonds were reinforced around the fire each evening, where meals were shared and stories were told. These gatherings were more than just times to eat. They became moments of teaching, healing, and laughter. Through them, individuals found strength in one another. Loneliness was rare, for the idea of isolation did not belong in this world. Family and community bonds reminded every member of their value and gave them the reassurance that even in a dangerous landscape, they were never truly alone. Children played an important role within these bonds, not only as learners, but as symbols of hope. Their games were simple: throwing sticks, chasing one another, or mimicking the tasks of adults. But each play activity had meaning. By imitating their elders, they rehearsed the skills they would need in adulthood. Parents and older siblings guided them gently, showing them how to make small tools, which plants were safe, and how to follow the rhythms of the tribe. Elders, too, often played a part in raising children. They told stories by firelight, passing down myths, memories, and lessons. In this way, knowledge did not die with age. It was woven carefully into the minds of the young. The bonds between generations were strong, perhaps even stronger than what we often see today. Grandparents were not separate from daily life, but at the center of it, shaping how the group thought and lived. The laughter of children, the wisdom of elders, and the steady guidance of parents formed a circle of connection that held the community together across time. Language, or at least the early beginnings of it, played a vital role in these bonds. Though prehistoric people may not have had the complex languages we know today, they communicated through gestures, sounds, expressions, and eventually simple words. Around the fire, they shared not only food but also thoughts, warnings, and emotions. This growing ability to communicate strengthened trust within the group. A warning call could save lives during a hunt, while a soothing sound from a parent could calm a frightened child. Over time, these sounds turned into shared symbols, creating the roots of spoken language. Language, in turn, built stronger bonds. It allowed the community to share stories of ancestors, to pass down lessons about where to find water, or to explain the dangers of certain animals. It gave them a way to share dreams and fears. In many ways, language became the invisible thread that tied families together, shaping not only how they survived, but how they understood themselves as part of a greater whole. Even rituals and small traditions added strength to these prehistoric bonds. Rituals may have been simple, offering thanks to the spirits of animals after a hunt, or marking significant events like births and deaths, but they gave meaning to the cycle of life. These shared acts deepened the sense of belonging, reminding each person that they were part of something larger than themselves. For instance, when someone died, it was common to see early humans bury the body with care, placing stones, flowers, or simple objects beside them. This act reflected love, respect, and remembrance, showing that bonds endured even beyond death. On happier occasions, like the successful return of a hunt, the group might sing, clap, or dance around the fire, celebrating survival and unity. Such moments were not only expressions of joy, they also reinforced identity. They reminded each member that life was not just about struggle, but also about connection, tradition, and the small joys shared together. These customs wove a fabric of culture that held communities close. At the end of each day, when darkness returned and stars lit the sky, the strength of family and community bonds could be felt most deeply. Gathered around firelight, humans rested from their labors. Children fell asleep in the arms of parents, and elders spoke softly of times long past. The fire became a circle of safety, and within that circle, bonds grew stronger with each passing night. In a world without walls, without technology, and without certainty, this togetherness was the greatest source of protection. Each individual knew they belonged, and that belonging gave them courage to face whatever challenges the next day might bring. These bonds, woven across countless generations, shaped human history itself. They laid the foundation for empathy, cooperation, and the ability to live as communities. Even today, when we gather with family, celebrate traditions, or share stories around a table, we echo those ancient connections. The rhythm of survival may have changed, but the deep need for family and community, born millions of years ago, still guides us. These bonds were, and remain, the heart of human life. Long before the written word, before books or carved tablets, humans told their stories in a very different way on the walls of caves. Deep inside cool, shadowed chambers, far from sunlight, early humans left behind images that still speak across thousands of years. These paintings, carved shapes, and handprints are among the earliest expressions of human creativity. They show that even in a world dominated by survival, people long to express themselves, to leave behind marks that went beyond the daily hunt or the struggle for fire. Imagine a flickering torch casting light on rough stone, revealing figures of animals, bison, horses, deer, drawn with care and skill. These were not simple doodles. They were deliberate, purposeful acts of creation. For prehistoric people, painting on cave walls was not only an artistic choice, but also a spiritual and emotional one. It connected them to their surroundings, to each other, and perhaps to forces they could not see but deeply felt. In the quiet of the caves, art became memory, magic, and meaning. The subjects of these cave paintings tell us much about the world of early humans. Animals appear most often: powerful bison with curved horns, elegant horses with flowing manes, or mighty mammoths whose size dominated the Ice Age landscape. These creatures were central to human life, not only as sources of food and clothing, but as symbols of strength and survival. By painting them, humans honored them. Some researchers believe the act of painting animals may have been a kind of ritual, a way of calling upon good fortune before a hunt. Others think it may have been a method of teaching, showing younger members of the group which animals were dangerous, which were prey, and what they looked like in detail. Yet beyond practical reasons, there is also beauty in these works. The artists used natural colors made from minerals, clay, and charcoal, blending shades of red, black, and brown to bring their images to life. Even today, looking at these paintings stirs a sense of awe, reminding us that creativity is as old as humanity itself. Alongside animals, human handprints often appear on cave walls, sometimes pressed directly on a stone, sometimes outlined in paint. These handprints may seem simple, but they carry deep significance. Imagine a person thousands of years ago placing their palm against the cool rock, blowing pigment around it, and leaving behind the shape of their hand for all time. It was a declaration: I was here. These prints may have marked belonging, showing that the cave was a shared space for the group. Some could have been part of rituals, symbols of connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. To us today, they feel strikingly personal, almost as if the individual is reaching across the ages to touch us. They remind us that prehistoric people were not faceless figures lost in time, but humans with feelings, dreams, and the desire to be remembered. Each handprint echoes with humanity, making the distant past feel close, familiar. The subjects of these cave paintings tell us much about the world of early humans. Animals appear most often: powerful bison with curved horns, elegant horses with flowing manes, or mighty mammoths whose size dominated the Ice Age landscape. These creatures were central to human life, not only as sources of food and clothing, but as symbols of strength and survival. By painting them, humans honored them. Some researchers believe the act of painting animals may have been a kind of ritual, a way of calling upon good fortune before a hunt. Others think it may have been a method of teaching, showing younger members of the group which animals were dangerous, which were prey, and what they looked like in detail. Yet beyond practical reasons, there is also beauty in these works. The artists used natural colors made from minerals, clay, and charcoal, blending shades of red, black, and brown to bring their images to life. Even today, looking at these paintings stirs a sense of awe, reminding us that creativity is as old as humanity itself. Alongside animals, human handprints often appear on cave walls, sometimes pressed directly on a stone, sometimes outlined in paint. These handprints may seem simple, but they carry deep significance. Imagine a person thousands of years ago placing their palm against the cool rock, blowing pigment around it, and leaving behind the shape of their hand for all time. It was a declaration, "I was here." These prints may have marked belonging, showing that the cave was a shared space for the group. Some could have been part of rituals, symbols of connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. To us today, they feel strikingly personal, almost as if the individual is reaching across the ages to touch us. They remind us that prehistoric people were not faceless figures lost in time, but humans with feelings, dreams, and the desire to be remembered. Each handprint echoes with humanity, making the distant past feel close, familiar, and deeply moving. The act of creating art itself must have been a special ritual. Caves were not easy to reach, and many of the paintings are found in deep chambers where no natural light could enter. To go there, people carried torches, their flames casting shifting shadows across the walls. In the flicker of firelight, the animals painted on stone seemed almost alive, moving as the flames danced. The atmosphere must have felt sacred, filled with the scent of smoke and earth, the silence broken only by quiet voices and the scratching of stone against stone. Creating art in such places was likely more than decoration. It may have been a ceremony, a moment of unity where the group gathered to honor life, the hunt, and the mysteries of existence. Through these acts, art became not just expression, but connection between people, between humans and nature, and perhaps between the living and unseen spirits they believed guided their world. Beyond ritual and survival, cave art also shows us the birth of imagination. In drawing animals, hands, and symbols, prehistoric people were not only recording what they saw, they were reimagining it. They chose colors, exaggerated shapes, and created patterns, showing a creative spark that went beyond necessity. This imagination set humans apart, allowing them to dream of worlds beyond the immediate. Some paintings even include abstract signs, dots, lines, or shapes whose meanings are still debated today. Were they maps, messages, symbols of spiritual power? We may never know for certain, but their presence reminds us that humans have always sought to express ideas too complex for simple words or gestures. This desire to create meaning through art is something we still carry today, whether in painting, music, or storytelling. It reflects a deep human need not only to survive, but to create, to dream, and to leave behind traces of our inner lives. When we look at cave art today, preserved in places like Lascaux in France or Altamira in Spain, we see more than ancient paintings. We see windows into the hearts of people who lived tens of thousands of years ago. These works remind us that even in the harshest of times, humans sought beauty, connection, and memory. At the end of a long day of survival, they gathered in darkness, lit their torches, and painted images that would outlast their lives. In doing so, they gave us gifts, messages carved in stone, whispers from the past telling us that creativity is as essential as food or fire. These cave paintings are echoes of humanity, reminding us that the desire to create and to leave a mark is universal, timeless, and unbroken. As we imagine those early artists, their hands brushing stone under flickering light, we feel a closeness to them. Across thousands of years, through pigments and handprints, they remind us that we share the same bond, the need to belong, to imagine, and to be remembered. As the day slowly faded and the sun sank beyond the horizon, prehistoric humans entered one of the most profound and mysterious parts of their daily rhythm: nightfall. Without electricity, without lanterns or glowing screens, the coming of darkness was absolute and powerful. Shadows deepened around the camp, and the world outside the fire's circle became hidden and uncertain. Yet, this moment also carried beauty. The first stars pierced the deep blue sky, scattered across the heavens like countless points of silver light. For our ancestors, these stars were not simply distant suns, but mysteries to be gazed at with awe and wonder. Nightfall marked a shift from the practical tasks of survival to the quieter rituals of rest, reflection, and storytelling. The fire became the heart of the community, a glowing island of warmth and safety in a vast sea of darkness. Around it, families drew close, voices softened, and the great sky above stretched endlessly, filling human hearts with both humility and curiosity. For prehistoric humans, the night sky was more than a backdrop. It was a guide, a calendar, and perhaps even a canvas for the imagination. The phases of the moon marked time, helping groups understand when seasons were changing and when it was best to move from one place to another. The stars themselves likely served as navigational markers, pointing the way across plains, deserts, and forests. Even without written knowledge, patterns in the sky became familiar. Certain stars rose at the same times each year, and constellations seemed to trace stories across the heavens. For people whose lives were woven so tightly with nature, the sky may have felt alive, its shifting lights offering messages and mysteries. Gazing upward, they might have wondered why the moon changed its shape or why comets streaked briefly through the night. These questions stirred early imagination, giving rise to myths and spiritual beliefs that tied the heavens to the earth below. The darkness of night also carried with it both comfort and fear. Away from the fire, the wilderness grew louder. The cries of animals echoed through the trees. The rustle of unseen creatures stirred the tall grasses, and the wind itself seemed to whisper secrets. For early humans, these sounds reminded them of their vulnerability. Predators prowled at night, and the dark was their ally. Yet, the community fire created a powerful sense of protection. Its glow pushed back the shadows, its warmth steadied anxious hearts, and its crackle gave rhythm to the silence. The firelight also made the sky above seem even brighter, the stars twinkling in contrast to the soft golden flames below. For those gathered together, nightfall was not only about survival, it was also about togetherness. With danger surrounding them, bonds within the group grew stronger, as each person relied on the others for safety and comfort in the face of the unknown. As the fire burned steadily, night often became a time for storytelling. Elders shared tales of hunts, spirits, and the creation of the world. These stories, spoken under the canopy of stars, carried both wisdom and wonder. They explained why the moon grew and shrank, why thunder rumbled, or why certain animals moved in mysterious ways. For the younger ones listening, these stories were lessons as much as they were entertainment. They helped shape the values of the group, teaching respect for nature, bravery in the hunt, and loyalty to family and tribe. The rhythm of the spoken voice, the flickering of flames, and the endless sweep of stars above created a setting that was both calming and magical. Night storytelling was not only a way to pass the hours of darkness, it was a way to connect generations, to give meaning to the struggles of the day, and to prepare hearts for the new dawn to come. Beyond stories, the night sky may also have inspired some of the earliest forms of spirituality. To people who lived so closely with nature, the stars and moon must have seemed like the eyes of unseen beings, or perhaps fires of the spirit world shining from above. The steady rhythm of the moon's cycle and the vast, unchanging patterns of stars gave humans a sense of continuity and order in a world that could often feel unpredictable. Some groups may have believed that ancestors looked down from the sky, while others saw the heavens as the realm of powerful forces guiding the earth. Whatever their interpretations, the night sky shaped how prehistoric humans understood life, death, and their place in the universe. It filled them with awe, comfort, and a feeling of connection to something greater than themselves, feelings that continue to live in us even today when we pause to gaze at the stars. Finally, as the hours grew late and flames softened into glowing embers, sleep gently arrived. Families curled close together, listening to the fading crackle of wood, the steady breathing of loved ones, and the quiet pulse of night. Above them, the sky stretched endlessly, filled with shimmering stars that would keep watch until morning. Nightfall was both a time of rest and renewal, allowing tired bodies to recover and minds to dream. In the silence of prehistoric nights, under the gaze of the moon and constellations, humans found not only rest, but also inspiration. The rhythm of darkness and light, of day and night, became part of the great cycle of existence, guiding life as surely as fire and food. To close one's eyes beneath that sky was to feel both small and infinite, sheltered by family, guarded by the fire, and watched over by the endless heavens. In this way, nightfall was not an end, but a reminder that each day was part of a larger story, one written in the stars themselves. As we reach the end of this long journey into the distant past, let us pause and reflect on the story we have traced together. Millions of years ago, the earth was filled with lives so different from our own, yet bound to us in ways both subtle and profound. The early humans who walked across plains of grass, who built shelters of stone and wood, who painted their dreams upon cave walls, were not so far removed from us as they might first appear. Their world was raw, untamed, and filled with challenges, but it was also a place of beauty, rhythm, and meaning. As we look back at their existence, we can see ourselves reflected in their struggles, their discoveries, and their quiet moments beneath the night sky. This reflection reminds us that our story is part of something much larger, a thread woven into the great fabric of time. The rhythm of daily life in those times was simple, yet it carried weight. Every step, every decision mattered. Survival was not guaranteed, and yet communities endured. They awoke each morning to the warmth of fire, to the familiar faces of family, to the reassuring sounds of nature. They built their days around work, care, and companionship, and their nights around the security of gathering together. In their shared meals, in their songs, in the stories whispered at the edge of sleep, they found a sense of belonging. Even though they did not know the vast future that awaited, they lived with a closeness to the earth and to one another that is easy to admire. It is in this closeness that we discover a quiet wisdom, one that whispers softly across time. That life is richer when it is lived in connection with the land, with the community, and with the spirit of curiosity. When we imagine their world, it is easy to picture it as harsh or unforgiving, but it was also filled with beauty. Rivers glistened in the sun, forests sang with bird calls, and the air carried the scent of earth and wood smoke. Children laughed as they played near streams. Elders shared their experiences as treasured guidance. Hunters returned home carrying not just food, but stories of the wild. And in moments of stillness, entire groups sat quietly by the fire, gazing into the flames and perhaps pondering the same questions that we carry even today. Who are we? Where do we belong in this great universe? Their answers may have been wrapped in myths and stories, but at the heart of it lay a desire for understanding, a longing to find meaning in the vastness of existence. The art they left behind on cave walls still speaks to us in whispers. Through faded lines of ochre and charcoal, we glimpse the creativity and spirit of people who lived long ago. These paintings are more than decorations. They are echoes of thought, memory, and imagination. They remind us that even in the earliest days of humanity, There was a yearning not only to survive, but also to express, to share, and to leave something for those who would come after. These images, some of which have lasted tens of thousands of years, stand as a bridge across time. When we look at them now, we do not simply see pictures of animals or hunts. We see proof that humanity has always sought connection through creativity. It is as if those ancient artists reached forward across millennia, whispering that they were here, that they lived, and that their voices still deserve to be heard. And then there was the sky. At night, the prehistoric world lay under a blanket of stars, unbroken by city lights or noise. The sky must have seemed endless, a canvas alive with shimmering points of mystery. Families and communities likely gazed upward, much as we do today, wondering what lay beyond those lights. For them, the stars were companions, markers of time, and perhaps guides in their journeys. To imagine their awe is to understand something deep about ourselves, that across all ages, the human heart has been moved by wonder. Even as they gathered close for warmth, perhaps their minds drifted into dreams shaped by the heavens above. In their silence beneath the night sky, we find our own silence mirrored, a stillness that invites rest, reflection, and the gentle drifting into sleep. As this journey closes, let us carry with us the calm lessons of that ancient world. Life millions of years ago was filled with hardship, yet also with resilience, love, and beauty. It was a time when each dawn was a gift, each fire a safeguard, and each shared story a treasure. In remembering them, we remember ourselves. The echoes of prehistoric life remind us that no matter how much time has passed, we remain linked by the same need for connection, meaning, and peace. And so, as you settle deeper into comfort, let the voices of the past fade gently, like embers cooling in a fire. Allow the calm rhythm of their story to guide you into rest, into dreams, and into the quiet assurance that you are part of a story that stretches back across countless generations. Sleep now, carried by the echoes of ancient life, and let the world of long ago cradle your thoughts as you drift away. And so, we come to the end of this journey into the lives of our earliest ancestors. From their shelters and tools to their art, families, and quiet nights beneath the stars, their world still whispers to us across the ages. Though millions of years have passed, their story reminds us of resilience, creativity, and the deep bonds that make us human. As you carry these reflections with you, let them bring both knowledge and calm. For those listening to learn, may the past stay vivid in your thoughts. And for those drifting to sleep, may the echoes of ancient life guide you gently into dreams.